Okay guys, so you have been talking about text features of biographies and autobiographies all week. And today you are going to reflect on some text features that you have seen inside of the life story that you are reading. But before you do that, I want us to continue to do our read aloud about Walt Disney's life story. Today we're going to read 2 chapters from his life story, and then I actually have a short little video that goes with the reading that you're going to just watch just for enjoyment, and then you're going to answer a few questions about the text features in the life story that you're reading as an assignment today. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn more about our friend Walt Disney. Here we go. Chapter 3 is entitled Seeing the World, and if you notice there's already a text feature here in illustration form. So here we go. In 1917, once again, the Disneys had to move. The newspaper route wasn't bringing in enough money, so Elias decided that the family should return to Chicago. Isn't that crazy? That's right close to home in West Michigan here. There, he invested in a fruit juice and jelly company. Maybe this time his luck would change. In Chicago, Walt attended McKinley High School, and once again, he was bored in all of his classes. Some of you might relate to that. The only thing he liked was drawing cartoons for the school newspaper, and after a year he dropped out of school. Even though he wasn't sure what he wanted to be, Walt had faith in himself. He was sure that one day he would be a big success, maybe as a newspaper cartoonist or maybe doing something in show business. At night he took art classes at Chicago Academy of Fine Arts, and he also bought himself a movie camera. He made a new friend, Russell Moss, and they made short films together. They worked out a comedy act, but it must have been pretty bad because when the boys tried out their act in the theater, they actually got kicked off stage. So talk about things that make up a biography. We talked about all biographies, talk about successes and setbacks. That would definitely be one of Walt Disney's setbacks. To support himself, Walt applied for a job with the post office. The boss said he was too young, so Walt went home, changed his clothes, put on a man's hat, drew a mustache on his face, and he went back to the post office. He talked to the same man again, and this time he got the job. Notice there are more illustrations here to help us understand what's going on in the story. While Walt was working at the post office, 2 of his brothers, Herbert and Roy, were serving in the army. It was wartime. World War I. The United States had just joined the fight against Germany and was sending thousands of American troops over to Europe. Walt felt as if he was missing out on all of the action. To him, the war seemed like an adventure, but he was too young to enlist. Finally, he convinced his mother to sign papers to permit him to drive an ambulance. He set sail for France in November of 1918. He had not yet turned 17, but he was about to see a whole new world. So imagine being 17 and going off to war. By choice. This is what he wanted to do. He must have really been bored with school, huh? The thing was, Walter never got near a battlefield. To his disappointment, the fighting had already ended by the time that Walt reached France. Here's another a picture for us to understand the story as we read. Instead of rescuing wounded soldiers, he spent much of his time driving officers around, running errands, and drawing. He drew cartoons all over the canvas flaps of the ambulance. Walt made extra cash in a dishonest way. He and a friend found some helmets of German soldiers, and they scuffed them up and shot holes in them. Walt's friends sold them as real war souvenirs. When he returned home a year later, in October of 1919, he was almost 18. His family had hardly recognized him because he had grown so much taller and he filled out. He looked much more like a man. Walt was also hooked on cigarettes, a terrible habit that he actually never quit. Elias Disney wanted his son to work in Chicago at the jelly factory, but Walt was not interested. Against his father's wishes, he decided to go back to Kansas City to find work as an artist. Walt Disney was ready to strike out on his own. Chapter 4 is called Drawings That Move. In Kansas City, Walt teamed up with another artist. He had a very unusual name, Ub Iwerks. Ub was shy and serious, not at all like Walt. Ub was also very talented. The two started their own company. Here's a little illustration of Ub. They hoped to create art for ads and signs. They had plenty of ideas. They were missing only one thing: customers. The shop closed after only a month in business. Soon after, Walt and Oob found jobs at Kansas City Slide Company. It turned out to be a lucky break. The slide company changed Walt's life. Here we go with a success, right? Walt learned all about animation. Animation is a film or drawings that move. Cartoons. In 1920, cartoons were something new. Audiences were amazed to watch drawings of funny people and animals actually moving on the screen. Now here we go. Here's a great text feature that's called a pop-out box that gives us some deeper description of something that's involved in the text but doesn't necessarily have to do with the story. This one is all about animation basics. Let's read it together. An artist creates a simple animation, for example, a dog wagging its tail, by drawing the same character over and over on separate pieces of paper. In each drawing, the position of that tail would be a little bit different, and when the pieces of paper are flipped really fast, to the human eye it appears the tail to be moving. For films, professional animators create the illusion of motion by recording the scene change frame by frame. So here's an example of that with these illustrations here. Isn't that interesting? Let's keep reading. Artists competed with each other to invent new techniques for cartoons. Walt wanted to get in on the action, so he went to the library and he took out a book called Animated Cartoons, How They Are Made, Their Origin and Development by Edwin G. Lutz. He studied the book and then he set up a studio in the shed behind his house. Every evening he drew cartoon characters in different positions and filmed them. It might have taken 18 drawings just to show a person raising an arm. Animation takes lots of time, but hard work never stopped Walt. He called his cartoons laugh-o-grams. Isn't that funny? I think of Instagram when I hear laugh-o-grams. They were silent and they were full of slapstick humor. Only lasted a couple of minutes and they were based on fairy tales. Walt would change the story a little to make it funnier. And after selling a laugh-o-gram cartoon to Neiman Theaters in Kansas City, he started up a small company to make some more. Here's a picture again to help us see what's going on in the story. Walt recruited artists to help him make cartoons. After all, he couldn't do all the drawings himself. The problem was he couldn't afford to pay a steady salary, so instead he promised to share any money that he earned from the cartoons. His friend Oob Iwerks and a few other men joined Walt in his new business. They spent the day drawing characters, making up jokes, and goofing around with a movie camera. Talk about a fun job. Walt worked on a film called Alice's Wonderland. It was about a real girl named Alice, played by a 4-year-old actress named Virginia Davis. Walt's Alice finds herself in a cartoon world. Mixing live actors with animation was something new. Before he finished Alice's Wonderland, Walt's company went bankrupt. There's another setback. He even had to sell his movie camera. Kansas City was not the center of the entertainment business. Walt knew that. If he wanted to make it big, he had better go where movies were made. Hollywood. The next chapter we read is going to be all about that, Hollywood, and we're going to talk about the first Disney film he ever made. Go ahead and watch the video I have that goes along with the story of Walt Disney. We'll see you soon.